Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started here. We're having a town hall meeting on the proposed amendments to the gaming ordinance. And so if you're wondering, what a town hall meeting is or, why we're here, this is basically just an opportunity for the public to comment on the proposed gaming ordinance. So you'll see up on the screen it says draft, because this has not been enacted yet. This is just an idea, this is just a proposal. And so before we take the step of enacting this, we want to give public comment. I, in particular, want to give public comment, and I want to involve the tribal council in the important issues of the tribe. So this is an opportunity to say, this is what I think the gaming ordinance could say, or this is what I like about it, this is what I don't like about it. The opportunity to comment, it's not a promise by the CBC that your comments will be put into the gaming ordinance. It is a promise by me that I will, listen to your comments and consider them. But we'll have to workshop it with the rest of the CBC. The Gaming Commission, they have a voice in the decision-making process. Comanche Nation Entertainment has a voice in it. So between all these different voices, we just want to get as many voices in the conversation as we can to hopefully come to the best gaming ordinance that we can have. And we have several different types of ordinances, and the reason I'm doing a town hall for this one in particular is just because gaming is so important as far as the revenue that we have. It's millions of dollars. It funds, so many of our programs. So because of its importance, I want to make sure that, we have the voice of the tribal council, the voice of the public is here. The gaming ordinance itself it's up here so that, we can talk about it. And I'll open it up to comment in just a minute, but I kind of wanted to just go through what is the proposals are to be changed, and then just kind of go over what I think about the gaming in general and the ordinance and what will make a good ordinance. But speaking for myself, a gaming ordinance, because it needs to be approved by the National Indian Gaming Commission, and it takes them 45 days to approve or disapprove, you have to make it so it has a little bit of flexibility built into it. It's kind of almost like a constitution, where with a constitution, you kind of want to be a little bit more broad, and then you have policies, procedures, codes, etc., to kind of make it, to address the specifics, because you can't just change the constitution. Similar with the gaming ordinance, you can't just change it at a CBC meeting, but at a CBC meeting, you can approve changes, but then the NIGC has to do it, has to approve them, and so it just takes, it's a time and it's a process. So you can always amend it, you can always ask for it to be changed, but just because it's a little bit more of a process, I don't think we want to delve into the nitty-gritty of every little thing and make it kind of too specific, so that every time we need to change something, we have to wait 45 days, because there, you want to be adaptable, and so certain gaps will be there on purpose to allow Comanche Nation Entertainment or the Gaming Commission to fill those gaps through their own policies and procedures. But the main thing that this gaming ordinance, the reason that it's being amended, the primary reasons it's being amended, is to add a board of directors for Comanche Nation Entertainment. That is something that previously existed and was taken out, and the CBC was sort of acting as the de facto board of directors, and so this is going to add in a board of directors. And then it will also change the Gaming Commission to have multiple commissioners. Right now there is just a single commissioner, and so this will change it to have multiple commissioners. This is also something that previously existed, and we're just kind of trying to bring it back. And so what does the Gaming Commission do? What does the Board of Directors do? Well, Gaming Commission is the side of gaming that is regulatory in nature. So making sure that people don't have felonies, or they're not convicted embezzlers or something, making sure that they don't get gaming licenses. That's something the commission does. Making sure that the gameplay is fair and is following certain standards of control. That's what the Gaming Commission does. Managing the business, so making business decisions like should we renovate the casino, or should we change from one slot vendor to another slot vendor? Those sorts of business decisions is what Comanche Nation Entertainment would do, and so the board of directors, their responsibility would be to oversee that side. The business side, the judgment, management, and business judgment is what the board of directors does. And so those are the main changes. We kind of just walk through it a little bit. You know, you have a part that has kind of general provisions that just sets forth the purpose, the definitions that are used. The definitions are quite expansive, as you can see. It authorizes gaming on our Indian lands. It says that the ownership of the gaming is with the Comanche Nation itself, and it talks about the use of gaming revenue, per capita payments, public and environment and public health and safety, and kind of has just some general provisions. Kind of this is just an introductory section, and talks about access to information, political activities. Then part 200, the second part, is about Comanche Nation Entertainment, and again, this is the one that manages the business side of gaming, and this one proposal would have a board of directors of 3 people, I believe, and they would all be enrolled members of the Comanche Nation. They would serve staggered terms of 3 years. They'd have to have a license. And then you can see their duties in here: hire, direct, and supervise the chief executive officer, monitor the operations, any other powers or duties not prohibited that the directors determine are necessary to monitor and oversee the management of the casinos. You'll see there's sections on appointment of directors, which would be, under this proposal, would be the CBC. The chairman would call for resumes, the CBCs would review resumes and then choose people to serve as directors. The eligibility would be that you cannot be member of the CBC, you can't be a commissioner or a primary management official of a direct competitor, like another, like the Kiowa Casino or Apache Casino or something. Persons having financial interests in a contract to which the director's commission or gaming facility or related enterprise are a party. Persons sharing a residence with any of those people, employees of the board, commission, gaming facilities, or related enterprises, and then people that are not eligible to receive licenses cannot be directors. And then it has a section on how a director can be removed, when they're supposed to meet monthly, keeping written records of their meetings, and then it goes on to talk about the office of the CEO, and that's what's already in there, but we have a chief executive officer, and they have certain duties to oversee, and they need a license, and it talks about the eligibility, and this is all stuff that's already in there. The change that's proposed is just about this board of directors. And then section 300 is about the gaming commission, and again, right now we have 1 gaming commissioner, and this would create an office of 4, and there would be 3 commissioners and 1 alternate. A non-voting alternate specifically. And then they would select a chair, and you can see this is the section 303. Yep. Oh, whoa. Page 14, okay. All right. Here we go. Yeah, and feel free, like I said, the purpose of us meeting here is public comment. So anytime you have a comment, feel free to just interject. But yeah, Mr. Toshikwa, go ahead.
Under the director's meeting, B, the board of directors shall keep a written record of all meetings and make sure records are available to the CBC or the commission upon request.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings is those should be given to the CBC without even the CBC members having to request those meeting records.
All right. And we're just going to be taking, I'm just going to be writing down all these comments, and Jennifer's here too. But yeah, that is certainly a fair point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to wait for you to finish it, but since that
No, go ahead.
was brought up,
Yeah.
I actually have an opposing point of view.
Okay.
My name is Oscar Copeland, and I was chairman of the Gaming Commission from 2006 to 2011. And the point you made in practice sounds good, but if you automatically delivered those to the CBC or to another entity, there's a chance that those privileged notes could get out that quick. And so, to me, the language that states the request, you know who you're releasing it to, and if those notes get out there and it's privileged information, then you know who released it, and if there needs to be some sort of action taken to restrict it, then you know who's the leak, basically. And again, there's a lot of people at this table that served in the original Gaming Commission, and that was the practice then. I don't think it was in the ordinance like you have put it, but that was the practice that we came upon.
That was leaked out? I'm sorry, Mr. First.
Yes, I mean, for instance, the board of directors would meet and say they decided they wanted to hire somebody, and there's a lot of discussion about who they're going to hire, and they're trying to hire a general manager, or they're going to remodel something. We're in a competitive business, and the board of directors control that competitiveness, and so if that got out, our competitors, even though they're other tribes or other Indians, they're trying to get the dollar that we're trying to capture. And if they saw something that they could take a competitive advantage on us because that information got released from that meeting, it wouldn't do the Comanche Nation, it would do us a disservice.
I've read some of this, and I think there are provisions later on.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, and I know but when I heard your comment, and again, we agree on a lot of things, but to make a blanket, I'm automatically going to give it to you, nah, that to me, and again, in my experience, just wouldn't benefit the tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point.
And again,
too.
That's just my opinion. I know we're only throwing opinions out here.
Yep. No. Yeah. Definitely appreciate the opinions and the multiple viewpoints for sure. Anyone else have any comments on whether or not meeting minutes from the board of directors should automatically be transmitted to the CBC or transmitted only upon request?
I think CBC should know not to disclose any information anyway. I would hope that they should.
But doesn't the CBC and the board of directors meet monthly, and at least monthly or as needed? What do you think?
Yeah, there was another, currently the CBC meets monthly with Comanche Nation Entertainment because there is not a board, and I think there was a comment, and by the way, if anyone is watching this on live stream, this is just, everything we're doing here is just a courtesy to everyone. There is an email address. There is another way to submit comments. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm excluded, you're not excluded. You can submit comments via email, any comments you have on this. And so, but one of the comments that was already received was that this ordinance doesn't actually require, as far as I can tell, that there be meetings between the board of directors and the CBC, and so that was something that we might have to address, is to require them to meet. either monthly or, I guess, upon request. And do you have a feeling of how often they should be meeting?
At least monthly, if not more. No, we had always met monthly with the board, the commission and the board met at least monthly to discuss issues with the casino with the board or the commission. And then we all met with the CBC monthly.
Mm-hmm. So would the board monthly meeting be a different day than the board's meeting with the CBC each month?
Usually.
During my term, they would batch. Right after each other. So that way the CBC would have to be, it could be back to back, following each other.
The commission's meeting with the CBC and then the board's meeting
The
with
board,
the
and the tax commission would be, that way it would say the CBC would have that. One day, one meeting, next day, one meeting.
Yep. Any other comments? All right, we were kind of just walking through this, and I can slow down or speed up. Again, this is really just this is a meeting for you to voice your thoughts and your opinions. Yep, go ahead, Mr. Tashikwa. And if you and they were telling me, yeah, if you can use the mic so that people, if they are watching live stream.
Okay, on page 15, under section 216, the CEO's contracting limitations, the CBC approval by resolution is needed prior to the CEO entering into any contract or agreement that is, and I'll go to B, the construction or purchase of buildings or any other improvements to real property or buildings thereon exceeding $3 million. To me, that's a little high. It would, the CEO would be able to make a contract or agreement with someone that is less than $3 million. Is that am I reading that right, or?
Yeah, so you're reading this right. So under this proposal, and this is what it is currently, that the CEO has to have the CBC's approval for construction over $3 million. And so that means, you know, by implication, if it's under $3 million, the CEO can just do it his or herself.
I think that's a little high, in my opinion. I'll just bring it out to.
That's a requirement of the tribal council.
That's a requirement of the tribal council?
Passed by the tribal council.
I think the $3 million as a floor is, you know, like the tribal council, I think, said that it has to be, can be no greater than $3 million. I think we could make it less than $3 million if we wanted.
Yes.
But, you know, $3 million doesn't get you very far nowadays, unfortunately, with all the different, you know, inflation, especially like in construction with the materials and cost of steel and everything. But yeah, you know, open for comments. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I think with a board established, they'll be able to help to make sure that they're at that excess where they do the $3 billion. I think that, you know, now they just only have a CEO. I think with the board is going to help quite a bit to make those decisions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
since we're talking about limitations or restrictions, I think the one thing, and again, my experience is on the regulatory side, is that the language would be put in there that, my suggestion is that the language be put in there that states that it's subject to either a valid license by the vendor, the contractor, or the acquisition of a valid license. Because I know in the past that's been a concern that either the CBC or the gaming board brought a vendor they wanted, but when they went to get a license, they could not obtain that license because of things in their background. And if it's stated in this section or in a similar section, that cuts down on conflict.
Mm-hmm. So that we don't tie ourselves into contracts that can't be performed.
Well, or for instance, there was, without stating too much, there was a vendor that a CBC member preferred, and when we went to perform a license check on him, he had ties with organized crime in New Jersey and New York, and so he was not issued a license. And that caused the CBC member to, every time we turned around, to kind of target the gaming commission, because we wouldn't bend to his will. And if again, just food for thought, if you and the CBC thought it in here, then we could always point to the ordinance and say, hey, he's got to have a valid license to do this.
Mm-hmm. And just for everyone's benefit, there are, it goes on to the next page on the contracting limitations. And so one of them is it can't be a management contract because that's an IGRA issue, and so there needs to be additional approvals, including NIGC approval, and the CEO can't just do that by themselves. And then we have the construction or purchase of buildings or improvements exceeding $3 million. And then there's another limitation on contracting with other governments, other tribes, or federal, state, tribal, or local governments, except for certain things like routine provision of utilities or emergency services, marketing, transportation, lodging, distribution. Then the other limitations are the CEO by themselves can't grant any person a possessory interest in real property. So that means like executing a lease for a portion of one of our gaming facilities or something like that. They can't violate the nation's gaming laws, IGRA, or other applicable laws, and then they can't waive sovereign immunity except for in these specific circumstances, including a $3 million cap that was imposed by the tribal council previously. So any other comments on the CEO's contracting limitations? And then turn your mic on.
I was just going to comment and agree with Harry. If you're bringing back your board of directors, these duties would fall on them in addition to your CEO. And of course, it would be going through an approval process, which would have to be approved by the CBC or the tribal council. And are y'all comparing the gaming ordinance verbiage now versus what's up?
We're just walking through the proposal.
Okay.
Any other comments on that one? Yeah, sir.
Hey, can y'all speak up a little bit more? I can't hardly hear what they're saying across there. I cannot hear.
All right, use that mic. And then if you are using the mic, put it real close to your mouth like this. All right.
Now, what y'all talking about, a contract, or what kind of contract was that?
We're talking about the authority of the CEO of the casinos to enter into contracts without approval from the CBC. And so there's certain ones that they can enter into and there's certain ones they can't. And that's in this section 216.
Then that, well, I might be getting off the line, but anyway, the casino in cash, what has been done about that one? If somebody had paid him off to finish the job and he never done it, never did it right.
Yeah, so as
Now, what happened to the rest of that money is that we hear that they're still paying him.
they are not paying the former contractor anymore. They have a new contractor that they hired to try to finish out the job. I don't want to speak for the rest of the CBC because that was a decision that was made before I got on to keep going. I think I think it's a hard decision for them, or was a hard decision for them, and continues to be a hard decision because it's like they put a lot of money into it already, and so they want to, you know, it's kind of like if you play poker, kind of like, you know, you're pot committed or whatever, like you've already put so much money in there, and now you have to see it through, whereas obviously the opposing view is you might as well just cut your losses and save the money.
Did he attempt to get part of that back, that he didn't perform the work?
No.
What happened to that money that they paid him? Where did it go?
It went to the materials and to the contractor for their construction services.
That job wasn't done right. And the money still said, he took it with that false pretense of doing the job right, which it never was done right. Now, who was supposed to go out there and oversee that to make the inspector like? Who was supposed to see that?
As far as I understand it, the CEO of the CBC at the time.
Now, you know, when you sign a contract with anybody, there's a deadline. After the deadline, you pay it back. You don't take it and keep going.
I agree with you 100%. And I wish that it was.
Losing money out of it.
Yeah, and I wish it was.
Is there any attempt to get part of that back?
There is not any attempt to get it back because there's already been the settlement with the prior contractor, so that's already been, everything has been finalized and they're moving on to the next contractor. So all the disputes with them have all been settled already.
So you slap him on the hand and just let it go?
Not me, but the CBC that existed at the time, yeah. Any other comments? All right, the Gaming Commission that's proposed, again, 4 members, with one of them being an alternate. They all have to be licensed. Their duties are to hire, direct, and supervise an executive director of the commission, monitor and oversee regulation and enforcement of the gaming, and ensuring that the executive director accomplishes the duties in this ordinance and any other duties or powers not prohibited. The qualifications are a high school diploma, 4 or more years work experience in a highly regulated industry in the field of business management, compliance, or regulation, and then at least one of the following, either knowledge of the licensing requirements for gaming facilities, compliance requirements for gaming facilities, or audit requirements of gaming facilities, or a bachelor's degree in certain fields, business administration, management, accounting, marketing, or law, or similar, and then a little bit less years of experience, 2 years of experience rather than 4, and then the same type of knowledge, and then also to be an enrolled tribal member. The appointment of the commissioners would be the same as the directors, where there would be a call for resumes, and the CBC would appoint them. And the terms would also be the same as for directors, 3-year terms with a stagger.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
On the commissioners, the alternate commissioner position, I don't really think that, I think the commission could probably do with three positions instead of 4. You may want to consider a provision for reappointment of the commissioners. We've had circumstances in the past where, for whatever reason, commissioner's term was ended and they weren't either reappointed or replaced due to things coming up. So if there could be a mechanism to where they would either automatically be reappointed or some type of remedy, because there was a time period where the commission was short positions because of inaction by the CBC for whatever reason.
I think that, I'm sorry, are you, I'm sorry to interrupt, are you finished, or? Will you say?
Yes. Go.
I think there, in one area, there's a provision in there that the chairman can reappoint the commissioner.
But it has to be approved by the CBC. as the commissioners are appointed by the CBC for a resolution. So the business committee has to meet to approve the nomination, whomever. And it was our experience that the CBC, they never did act upon reappointing a person or replacing. So if there is something in there that they may be automatically reappointed after a certain period of time, something.
Similar to
Because
the
that problem did come up.
Yep.
Similar to the concept that you mentioned earlier about NIGC has so many days to either say yes or no, or it goes
Or it's
into effect.
deemed approved, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
No action approvals,
Yep.
yeah, I'm definitely. The, commissioner appointment, the terms, the eligibility, again, there's similar to directors, you know, members of the CBC, members of the board of directors, primary management officials of competitors cannot be on our gaming commission. For people with financial interests in contracts with the board of directors, commissions, or our casinos, persons that's related, you know, family anti-nepotism clause here, you know, people that are related to or cohabitate with those types of people also can't be on the commission. Employees of the casinos or the board or related enterprises also can't be on the commission, or if you can't get licensed, you can't be on the commission. There's sections on removal of commissioners.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
In that section, I do have a suggestion. Is one of those things to make a person ineligible is a CBC member who has just completed his term, and say at least for 3 years? Because again, that brings it to, if we, again, experience, you hate to keep telling old war stories, but where vendors approach the CBC versus coming to the board or coming to the commission and trying to curry their favor so that they can apply political pressure to one, well, if that so happens, but that person's ineligible to serve for 3 years, then it lessens the likelihood that there's going to be some type of collusion if that person immediately gets named after their term's over.
Yep. And war stories are what we're here for. So yeah, you know, like there's a lot of collective knowledge and wisdom in this room, and that's what we're trying to tap into. So yeah, definitely as many war stories as you want to tell.
Can we go back to the qualifications?
Yes.
So on the commissioner qualifications, I'm not seeing and/or experience. I'm seeing that you have to have a bachelor's degree in those. Am I not seeing it, or is it not in there? And if it's not, is it possible that we could add that in there? Because I think we have a lot of employees working at the casino level as well as the commission level that while they don't hold degrees in certain areas, they definitely have the experience. You know, they've been in gaming for, some of them, 20 plus years, and we definitely don't want to leave those individuals or those employees out that can bring that experience and that knowledge to the table. That's something that I would like to see in there is, in addition to the bachelor's degree and/or experience.
Yes.
Gaming experience.
So I think it's needs to be improved how it's written right now to make it clearer. But I believe, and you know, y'all can be as critical as you want of this because I didn't write this. So you know, you're not, if you're shredding this, I'm not taking it personally. But someone did write this, so you know, to spare their feelings. But it could be made clearer that because I think the intent was that it would be high school diploma plus 4 years of experience or bachelor's degree with 2 years of experience. And so not an and. So I think that could be made a little bit clearer, but would that address your concern?
Yes.
Any comments, war stories about having a commission, gaming commission? And I know there's several former commissioners in here, so I'm happy you came. Thank you for making time.
Can you define what a highly regulated industry is?
That would be gaming, because it is highly regulated.
Yeah, I'm going to look to the former commissioners.
Well,
how was that previously construed?
For instance, my non-tribal, I mean, didn't ever work for the tribe. I was various offices as appointed or elected, but I worked in the electric industry, okay? And so we had to comply with Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the FERC, and we had to apply with the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, and then we had to apply with all the Oklahoma statutes. And I had to, by the last 25 years of my job, I was responsible for making sure that we were in compliance, and then we actually performed the work, we did those things. One of the former commissioners, his job, he was contract and inspection for the city of Lawton, and he fell into that first group as a high school diploma, but he was responsible for, you'd mentioned about who inspects the contracts. His job was to go for the city of Lawton and inspect contract and work and make sure that people complied with that contract. So those are the type of things that in the past we construed as a highly regulated industry.
Would you then consider grant contract managers who have to follow grant rules and regulations highly regulated and eligible to serve?
You're asking me something that I'm no longer a commissioner. That never came in front of us.
You're not a commissioner, but in general, people who manage federal grants and contracts, you have to follow rules, regulations, and policies. Highly regulated if you're doing the job correct. I'm just throwing it out there because there's probably people who don't work in the gaming industry or highly regulated per se, the definition you gave, Oscar, but that might want to serve. Thank you.
I think the term highly regulated should stay in there because of, tribal gaming is a different level than regular gaming. And we are highly regulated in every aspect, at the tribal level, the federal level, the state level. So I think keeping highly regulated in there is a good thing, because we're letting any individual tribal member that is thinking about putting in for this commissioner position or board of director position, letting them know from the get that this is highly regulated and you must follow these federal guidelines.
I think that's a really important point to make sure you dwell on, because the underlying emphasis of all this is IGRA. And if we don't understand and I say we, if the commissioners and the directors don't understand that their functions and their performance of their duties are not only subject to the tribe's gaming ordinance, but also to IGRA, the federal overlay on that, then we're going to have conflicts that arise all the time. I'd mentioned in my previous job, I had to worry about state meshing with the federals, meshing with what my board of directors wanted me to do. It's a similar experience here. If the people that get appointed to these duties don't understand that it's not just, okay, I got appointed, well, for instance, the board of directors. If I got appointed to okay, I'm going to go out and make money, but they violate a whole log of tribal law and IGRA, then it puts the tribe at subject for the NIGC to come down and put their thumb on us and say, you're not doing that correctly, and we're going to stop you. And the worst enforcement is that they can say is we're going to shut you down. And again, the whole idea of this, sorry for my preaching, the whole idea of this is to give us a better, more efficient performing business so that money can come to the government and then be dispersed to our citizens and everybody can benefit from it.
Yep, that's right. All right, the eligibility, we were talking about, trying to avoid conflicts of interest. Then there's a removal, things like misconduct, neglect of duty, that sort of thing. And then there's a system for due process for removal where you get notice, and then there's a hearing and those sorts of things. Meetings, again, just like directors, are supposed to be once a month, or special meetings. And then this one says, the commission shall keep a written record of all commissioner meetings and hearings and make such records available to the CBC upon request. So it's the same language we saw with directors, and then there was some debate about that, so I guess I'll see if there's any comment on, or if it's a similar comments, Mr. Tashikwa and Mr. Kodaponi, you have about feelings about automatic transmission versus upon
Well,
request.
you heard, but my feelings stand from the previous comments.
Yep,
I think this is adequate.
yep. How about you,
My-
Mr.?
my, stance also.
Okay. Anyone else have comments on that one? All right. And then beneath the commission is the executive director of the Gaming Commission. And so all of this language in here is what exists today in our current Gaming Commission, as far as that there is an executive director, eligibility, which again is very similar, trying to avoid conflicts of interest, and then you have the duties, which are to ensure compliance with, as Mr. Kodaponi was explaining, ensuring compliance with the ordinance, with IGRA, also with the Tribal State Gaming Compact, and then promulgating the tribe zone internal controls and regulations for, you know, gameplay and employment and that sort of thing. Then you have the next section is on hearings and appeals. So this is for like if people.
Can we back up for a
Yep,
second?
go
there?
ahead.
I was glancing through here. I read this before we came, but apparently I didn't, something didn't ring a bell. Under the duties of the director of the Gaming Commission,
What page is that on?
21, executive director's duties. And correct me if I missed it, I could have. One of the things, and again, back to the old war stories, because one of the responsibilities of the commission at the time was to make sure that everything was done according to the regulation and to the practices, that surveillance was put under the commission. I currently don't know who has effective management of surveillance, but that was a big thing, because when the management had surveillance and commission requested videotapes of proposed wrongdoing, a lot of times those tapes either came to us with the specific time frame that was missing, or they were accidentally deleted. And so we couldn't follow up either to make a ruling that went to somebody's eligibility to retain their license, or even to forward that on to Comanche law enforcement for them to do something if money was walking out of the door, so to speak, in an unapproved manner.
I got a response.
Go ahead.
I worked at surveillance for about 6 weeks at Red River, and surveillance is underneath managers. And a lot of the surveillance, I'm not saying names, but many of the surveillance people didn't feel that was correct.
Because surveillance doesn't just include looking at those devices, but it also includes where to position them and what they're focused on. Because if you can say that you surveil your facility 24 hours a day, but you adjust a camera where it's not looking at a place where somebody's skimming money, then that camera does no good. And if it's the person, if it's a management responsibility to adjust those cameras, they can adjust them away from wrongdoing. Where if it's surveillance, is basic, not surveillance. The commission worked hand in hand with law enforcement, and we felt like it was our responsibility to make sure that every bit of that money that came into the casino went through the RAP and made its way to the government so it could benefit the nation.
And it's interesting you bring that up because that is also a comment that was previously received, was moving surveillance under the commission, because surveillance is currently underneath casino management with entertainment. My understanding of the reason for that has somewhat to do with cost, because surveillance is, high tech and high cost.
Well, and that was, again, when we started the commission, we were an ordinance similar to this came into being. Before that, CBC did everything, commission, gaming board, and we were in our fledgling stage of gaming. We fought for almost 4 years to get for surveillance under the commission, and that comment was made, the cost. Well, it's going to cost the same whether it's coming out of the management budget. If it costs you, and I'm using small numbers for example, if it costs you $100 to run it and management was paying for you, it's going to cost $100 for the commission to run it, but you just move the money over to the commission's budget to pay for that. But then the people responsible have a whole different mission, not just to look for, well, for instance, War Story. What they would do with the surveillance videos, and that was one reason that we were able to wrestle that control away. It was a personal thing. They would. I know we're live streaming, but I'm going to say this. They would ogle certain female patrons and follow them with the camera. Or at the time, the one at Red River, the Kiowa Casino was getting built. They would take the external cameras and they would watch construction and just see how they were just passing the time. They were not monitoring for wrongdoing and trying to make sure that the integrity of the gaming system was happening. They were enjoying themselves, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have a comment.
Oh, let's let her speak since you haven't had a turn yet. And what's her name, ma'am?
I'm Rhonda Williams, I'm a rural Comanche member. I question, do we have a loss and prevention or security department within our gaming? If we do not, I would recommend that we look at establishing some type of security, physical security, because physical security is who would be looking at where's the optimum places for these cameras and what do they look at. That would be my recommendation, is if we haven't done it, then we do need to look at considering putting that type of department within our gaming.
There is, the casinos do have a security department and they do have this surveillance department. You know, it does exist to have these cameras in place. But right now, we're kind of discussing who should have control of them and whether they should be housed under the Gaming Commission or under the casino management. And so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on who would best be the boss of of that team that you're talking about.
I think to keep them neutral and accountable, they're probably going to have to be under the commission, because while they're under the management of the casino, if we're already experiencing these problems and we continue to have these problems, and which means we have management that has not resolved it. So I would recommend that we do look at giving it to the commissioners, which would be more of a neutral party to it and can direct more. Does it need to now be transferred over to Comanche law enforcement for further investigation, or to HR for their investigation as well?
Okay, Ms. Burgess.
I was just going to comment that yes, we did have surveillance underneath the commission at one point, and it was a cost issue, and they moved it from commission to operations side. I think there's a few issues with having it on the commission side, in my opinion. The issue is security and surveillance. When something happens on the floor that needs to be addressed immediately, right now security can call surveillance and get that record, get that feedback, go back and watch it and make a decision there. When you separate the two, security does not have that authority. Mr. Toshapaw, he was director of security, he wouldn't even have the authority or he would have to wait for the commission. If it happened at 2, 3 in the morning at one of our casinos and some incident happened, well, our commissioners they're all asleep at 2, 3 in the morning, but our surveillance techs are there monitoring the floor along with security. So these two departments would be working hand in hand, and they wouldn't have to stop, wake up, whatever commissioner at 3 in the morning and have to go down there to see, and just to give permission. I think that's an issue for me, and I've seen it. You know, I've worked in gaming. I've seen that issue, and I think that we need to leave surveillance there on the operations side where they can effectively do their job along with security. And again, if we place a good commission back in and a good board, these two boards, these two factions were effective at one point, and we did great. When we pulled away from it is where we started having these issues. You know, you had asked about who was to blame. Well, we took away those two boards that could have helped us, and we wouldn't be in this predicament. And right now, as we're fixing it or trying to fix it to make it right, or it'll work better again, in my opinion.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Williams.
just wanted to know, why do our physical security or surveillance people need to ask for permission? Are they not empowered?
No,
to-
they're two separate, and they would be two separate. Operation would be under the casino, the CEO, the board of directors, their day-to-day operations. Your commission is regulatory. They're the, and when you move surveillance back to the regulatory side, they're no longer going to be an equal to your security team on the bottom. So when you have any issues that arise, you have to wait. And when it's something major, I'm not sure what happens at the casinos anymore at 2, 3 in the morning, but you know, it can't be anything good, that's for sure.
Well, I was just wondering if it's our policies that's making the delay that way, or the process of the reporting or getting permission. If we suspect that there has been some kind of wrongdoing, the security need to be empowered to do exactly what we've hired them to do, which is take a closer look, re-examine the video footage, and I don't think that would necessarily require waking up a commissioner. I would wake up the commissioner when it's, you know, something catastrophic, something very tragic. But let's say worst case scenario, they find something where someone has done some kind of wrong, then is that a report that could be handled first thing in the morning so that we can allow the security to do the job they're supposed to do, allow surveillance cameras to be looked at, because if we're waiting to get permission, that's just, that I don't think we're really empowering our security surveillance team to do what we're expecting them to do.
Oscar or Vicky, when surveillance was part of the commission, were there any practical impediments to
What
security?
I have known at the time, we didn't have any issues because they did work with security. And if there is a problem, if they do come back over to the commission, we could put it in there that they could work with the security when they have to look at something.
I think
And I can tell you this happened a couple of years ago, and this happened down at Red River. And they were under the the casino. A lady got her purse stolen off of her chair. She went to the security and asked the security, can you look at the video? The guy took off. The security turned around and told her, no, I can't, I have to wait for the manager. And she said, why the manager? You're the security. So either way, either the security don't want to do their job, or they were under something where that they had to get that permission to look at that. And it shouldn't. He should have automatically been able to see what's going on and called up there. But to me, I think I think it should go back under the commission. It really does. And I think we could work with the security.
there are practical ways to solve this, and I know when the Gaming Commission acquired surveillance, there was some discussion, or actually there was, okay, if you want to look at a monitor, you can post somebody up here, and here's a monitor, but here's the whole bank that the commission is responsible for. And with technology, because I used to do this in my job at the utility, we had a dispatch office that was filled with monitors. And when I went in and sat at the supervisor station, I'd say, okay, pull monitor 10 over here, I need to look at it. And they would drop it in on my computer. That same technology is, I mean, it's common in our electronic world today. The other thing is how they interact with each other, if it gets moved or if it doesn't get moved, but how those two entities interact when they look at that footage, that's probably, in my opinion, someplace where an MOA is a memorandum of agreement between the two entities saying this is what we're going to do and not do in practice. Because you mentioned earlier, I mean, it is something we need to address, that needs to be addressed, but I think you mentioned earlier about not putting too much stuff in here and try to be a little more flexible. Well, that MOA becomes something that's between those two entities, and the CBC can referee, and it's left out of here. But that understanding, I think, is right. It's a concern that needs to be addressed as to how. Let me rephrase that. My opinion is it still needs surveillance needs to be under the commission, but how they interact with the people on the ground in security and management can be addressed in an MOA between those two if this changes.
Barry?
You know, at this time, they don't have a director of security. I was their last director of security. I was put under a security manager. So that position as the director has not been filled for the last good 5 years. So they don't have that. They don't have that anymore on the director's side. I don't know why they haven't filled it. I have no clue. But at one time, I know that we were any type of major incidents or anything that we felt that security felt and the surveillance felt, we would call tribal, and tribal would be the one to come in and help us make a decision on what happened when they see the tape. So tribal has a lot to input whenever it comes to major incidents or requests that we call them. So, but as far as the putting it under the commission, you know, I think it would be good, but you got to have that connection between security and surveillance. Now, there's other things out there, from what I hear, like the manager on duty oversees everything on that floor. So you have to go to that person before you can do anything. And that's a big concern right there. Security, when they hear that, they kind of step back because it's that decision of that manager on duty. Not securities, but that manager on duty. That's a big issue there.
We have a comment over here. What's your name?
My name is Sasha.
What's your last name?
Taya.
Yeah.
I work for CNE Surveillance for 15 years.
Yeah.
I worked for CNE Surveillance for 15 years. I was under gaming and now I'm under the casino. I can guarantee we don't move our cameras so we don't see nothing. But when we were under gaming, it was like the floor thought we were different entities. So they didn't want to help or to collaborate with us on anything. And so even now, you know, you brought up that surveillance would look at and oogle persons or whoever on the floor. I mean, there was rules put in place that we couldn't do that. And we're watched too. I'm a surveillance operator. And there's somebody watching us and somebody watching them. So it was not going to be just us making those rules. But now, or well before, when we had an incident, 2 o'clock in the morning, we were able to bring in somebody. We have somewhere for somebody to watch those incidents, like a secure place for security supervisor or manager to come in. So we do work with them either way, if we're under gaming or under the casino. So, I mean, I would just want to make sure everybody understood that. And
well, I mean, I know I don't want to eat into your time. We were here appreciate this very much, I do. But you got to remember, I was a gaming commissioner from 2006 to 2011.
Oh, I went in 2009. And we changed towards the end, we had changed some stuff where somebody can come in with the gaming agent, which is what she asked, if we have anybody. So if we have incidents, our game agents come in and regulate too.
But see, that's exactly what I was talking about. They were able to drop that video right to that monitor right then. I mean, that's a normal thing in the electronic world. And so again, a memorandum, I didn't ever know that. You're gonna have to correct me here. MOA or MOU, one involves money, one doesn't. But a memorandum between the two entities, no matter where surveillance ends up as to how they interact with each other, is gonna be something that's necessary, I believe.
No, I think that's right too.
I'd like to give you one more example of when the gaming, the security surveillance was under the commission. There was an incident happened at our Lawton facility, and this involved employees. And the director, executive director, or someone there had authorized the employees to go out. We had these huge boxes or tin boxes or what are they called? Containers in the back, which held prizes that were given away through the years, and so there was an abundance out there. So they were basically going to wonder how to get rid of them, or what they were going to do. So the executive director said, or whoever said, well, we'll just go ahead and let the employees go out and take it. So security, they were watching. All of a sudden, you see 20, 25 people going in the back, employees of the casino, going back there and just grabbing. Vicki, you remember this, what I'm talking about? They were just getting anything they could out of there and putting in the pickups. They were calling their family and friends. Hey, come back here. They're loading up. You can see them loading up the cars. But if it hadn't been for the surveillance being under the commissioners, actually the CBC, we were at a meeting at the time, and they came and they said, hey, they're over here taking, the employees are over here taking off with prizes, and so the commission saw it right there, and they brought it to the CBC because we were in a meeting there at the tax commission at the time, and all of a sudden, well, by the time they were able to get everything done, the next day they were already saying, if you don't bring it back, you're going to be terminated to the employees. So they were bringing them back, and we're talking bicycles, just fishing rods, all types of different things. But it hadn't been, surveillance hadn't been under the commission, who knows? Because again, it was the directors of the casinos that said they could do it. And that's a violation of NIGA. You can't just give those prizes away. But yeah, we could have been in real big trouble if it hadn't been caught at the time by the gaming commission. So that's just an example.
So we had to wait. It had to wait. They got to take those things home, and because we're under gaming commission, we couldn't just call our manager on duty or the floor or anybody there. We had to wait for gaming to step in and come in, and then things had to happen. So they got to take all that stuff home. We're in live watching everything and calling everybody. And so, I mean, it could have been stopped right then and there, but we can't call the floor. We had to call gaming.
But it was the directors that authorized it.
Yes,
and if the commission hadn't been under that surveillance, probably no one would have said anything because it would have been overlooked. Say, well, the directors said we could do it, so they got there.
I was one of the operators.
Yeah, so if it hadn't been under the commission, then who would have known?
Because the employees were already told that they could do it by the.
They were water damaged, so before they were being thrown away.
It wasn't all water damage.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't all water damage.
Were the directors fired?
I think where they're reprimanded.
Is that all?
That was left up to the board of director that we had in place at that time. So, some of them were still working there over that. I could like say that.
All right, any other comments on the surveillance issue? All right. The place we left off was.
I do
go
have a
ahead.
quick comment, sorry. I noticed on the executive director, there's everything but qualifications. And we do have a previous ordinance that does have qualifications. That would be the 2015 gaming ordinance. And this draft currently does not address executive director qualifications.
CEO qualifications.
Well, yeah, and that's probably, but it doesn't have qualifications for ED.
Yeah, it has eligibility, but it doesn't have qualifications. Okay. All right, and so then hearings and appeals, it calls for tribal court jurisdiction. This is if, someone has been denied a license or been the subject of enforcement actions, notices of violation, that sort of thing by the commission, they can appeal that through a hearing before the tribal court, and that's laid out here. And then there's appeals to the, to go to the tribal appellate court. Just as the CEO of entertainment had contracting limitations, there's similar contracting limitations for the gaming commission, and there's also confidentiality policies, commissioner reports, the budget, developing a budget for the commission, submitting the budget for approval from the CBC, and using the budget to obtain equipment and that sort of thing. There's audit requirements. And then the last section for the commission is patron dispute resolution. Part of the commission's job is to ensure fair play. So if someone thinks that they were ripped off, or they slip and fall at the casino, or any sort of patron disputes, then that's that section 322 is the patron dispute policy.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Can we go back to the budget section? I'm trying to find it here, but I thought when I was reading this earlier, it said that it would come after the wrap. Or after, let's see. Maybe I misread that.
That might be part of the
director's?
CNE, yeah, the director's budget, I'm not sure.
Page 16,
Well,
CNE budget?
And the reason I bring it up is because and maybe I was reading, you're right, I might have been reading on the directors, but if the gaming commission and the directors, or the enterprise budget, come prior to the wrap, which is what they're supposed to, in my opinion, what they're supposed to do, then the flexibility to move one department to the other is all approved by that budget, and it isn't, it's easier to manage from the CBC's perspective when they look at the budget process. And so again, that's the point I guess I would like to make is that I feel like the Gaming Commission's budget, the proposed budget, would be handled similarly as the enterprise budget, that it comes prior to the wrap. Because I think in ICRA, when you look at that, I think those are if I remember correctly, I haven't looked at it in a long time, those are allowable expenses that don't have to be washed through the RAP.
I have a comment on that as well. I agree with Mr. Cotaponi that the budget should come off before the RAP, as the enterprise. Although at one point when I first started on the commission in '06, we didn't have a very big budget at all. As a matter of fact, it was probably maybe 2 million, and that was at the very beginning when we didn't, we were all learning together. Anyway, my point is, the licensing department incurs fees for the licenses of the employees, the licenses of the gaming and non-gaming vendors that come in, as well as other penalties or fines that they may render on the establishment, the gaming company, the non-gaming company, the patron, the employee, whoever they're getting those fees from. Is that I would like to see that budget, that licensing, all of that money, those fees coming in from licensing to be put into the gaming commission budget. So if you're getting X amount of dollars every fiscal year for licensing, then your budget should be minus that, not ask for this outrageous and then we take, well, I never know.
There's
That's what I'm
costs to
saying.
the background investigations.
Yes.
There's now costs for fingerprinting, whereas it used to not cost us anything, but now they've changed the regs to where the fingerprints, the FBI's got into the picture as far as fingerprinting. There, I think before I left, there was new regulations coming out with the fingerprinting process. So a lot of that money is being used to offset the background investigations, which have really, the cost have really increased. In fact, the fees that are charged at that time, I don't know what they are now, really didn't even cover the cost of the background investigation because, of course, depending on who you're doing the background investigation on, whether it's a primary or whether just a lower class of license. So that's what a lot of the money was used for when they collected.
Yeah. I'm just suggesting that's what we continue to do. I'm not sure if they still.
I'm sure they have to because they couldn't cover the cost without something trying to offset a portion of it.
On that subject matter, Sharon, of fees, what about the income earned from the ATM machines? How's that figured into the budget?
Goes to the
Operations.
Yeah. It goes to operations.
That is, but not the non-gaming. No, it would be a gaming fee. That company would pay a license to our commission to be licensed.
I thought ATM was owned by the tribe.
The
I'm not
ATMs,
sure about that.
some of the money goes to the tax commission. They have an ATM fee that the tax commission assesses. So some of it's going to them.
The other some of it goes where?
I've assumed the operations of the casinos.
The commission never got in.
Yeah, no.
Well, and there are a lot of discussions here that occurred at various levels, and the licensing of employees especially, because the bulk of those employees are Comanche Nation members. You didn't want to charge them the whole amount to get their license that they got to have to work every year. It's kind of like you wanted to charge them a driver's license fee, $35, whereas it might have actually cost you $200 to do it. And so that discrepancy was going to be, reported in the budget. We still need $175 or $65 to fill that hole, but you didn't want to make it, what's the word, onerous. You didn't want to hammer that employee just because he had to have a license to work, and he or she was the guy that brought you drinks. They may be the low man on the pay scale. So you didn't want to make it unreasonable for them to get their license every year.
So I have a question. Is there a reason why we have not aligned, we being the Comanche Nation, have not aligned all licensing, fees, that type of stuff with our tax commission? Is there a reason why we haven't done that?
Well, I didn't speak this because all of this gaming is under IGRA.
Yeah.
It's a standalone. You can't align it with the tax commission.
It's different.
It's only simple.
By federal law, you can't, to game, you have to comply with IGRA, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. So to do that, the federal government says if you're going to game, you got to do this, and you got to be a standalone. You got to have a gaming, you got to have a gaming ordinance, and you got to have a gaming section by itself, and you can't commingle those monies.
Well, how it is with the ATM, which just was brought up, how's the tax commission, those funds going into?
That's not a gaming function. ATM is not a gaming function. You're just simply doing a cash transaction. You're getting money out of your checking account.
It's a convenience.
Gaming is you're going to the table and you're playing blackjack, or you're going to the slot machines and you're putting money in. The ATM is not a gaming function.
But it's inside a gaming facility.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when we used to have the boxing matches and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, those aren't gaming issues. They happened on the grounds, but they were not, they were to get patrons in so they could go game. You give them access to their money so they could spend it at our facility, but that's not a gaming function. That's not a game. It's not a game. And that's the big thing.
So my question is, previously, all the fees and everything went back to the commission, and from what I understand now, they're filtered through the tax commission. And do you have an answer for that? Or
I
Mr.
don't.
Tupacani? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, as far as I know, no. It's reserved to the operation, gaming facility or gaming budget.
What she's asking, is that going to the tax commission?
No.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pay it when we go pay. When I get a fine, someone gets a fine, and I have to pay $200 for whatever infraction I did, and I go, I do not pay that directly to the commission. Where do I pay that fee?
It's collected, but it's not going to the tax commission. As far as I know, it's not.
I know that was part of our, when, again, 06 to 11, I want to give you the window that I was there, that we just started instituting some of those penalties, and particularly vendor violations, and those did come to the commission, to the gaming commission. Let me be specific. If it was a gaming violation, it came to the gaming commission. And initially, some of those vendor violations were large because they weren't just, I'm going to get off on too deep into the weeds here, but they weren't sealing machines properly, they weren't providing the correct motherboards and the chips and the things that ran them, and as the commission staff got up to speed and was able to inspect that, we in turn turned around and didn't sue the facility, not sue, fine the facility. It was that vendor that brought those in. He should have been, his machines should have been in compliance when they hit the floor, and they weren't. So, but those monies came back to the commission at that time.
So they've been, since been moved,
It's not to the tax.
But to kind of, I'm trying to defend this model because I like this model. You don't want to build your budget on fines, because hopefully everybody's in compliance and you don't fine anybody.
I have a comment on hearings and appeals.
Okay. Just get it up here. Hold on a second. You have a page.
It is 23.
Okay.
Starts with 23.
All right.
Okay, so previously, hearings and appeals were done by the commission board itself. And I see that now it's under the tribal court. That just kind of concerns me, is just our tribal judges, are they versed enough in gaming to make a decision and what infraction exactly was violated and the reason as to why the reason the person, the individual, was denied or revoked a gaming license, did it match, And how is that?
I
I'm not,
also have a problem with that.
yeah, I think that should go back to the commission.
The people in the tribal court aren't licensed. They're not, they didn't go through the licensing process, and they're not engaging the functions of the commission is to issue license. And when there's a problem with somebody's license, they would give them an opportunity to come to the commissioners to have an appeal, and we heard the appeal and made a decision on the appeal. I think there was a few times where our action, the person wasn't satisfied with it, and they did go to court, went to a court outside the tribe, and it was, of course, dismissed because they didn't have jurisdiction. And I think licensing and the appeal of the licensing, the commission is not a function you can give to the tribal court.
I think basically if you go back to the ordinance on 2015, if you remember, Cheryl, that was all updated and got approved before they got rid of it and got rid of the commission. And they would see that because they did have it where it would all come back to the commission. But then when they did all of this changing to get rid of the board and the commission, that's when they started going to the tribal court. And I don't agree with that.
I don't think the tribal court has jurisdiction on licensing issues.
No, but they're...
Whether a person is being denied or
Exactly.
license suspended.
When I read this earlier, I didn't really pay particular attention to that, but now that you have brought it up, that if the appeal was to the tribal court and the commission appeared in front of the court to defend its decision, whose attorney are they using? And is it going to put the tribal attorney, you served as our attorney before, he can't represent both sides. And so by putting it into tribal court and you have a tribal entity, the gaming commission, showing up to defend and they bring their lawyer, you're bringing the tribal lawyer into the tribal court that he's a party to. What's the word you lawyers use? He's an officer of that court too. I guess officers of court can oppose each other, but still that just appears to be a conflict to me if that ultimate appeal is left to the tribal court versus now you've got you don't have a single person making that decision. You've got a three-person body that they have to vote and agree on, and it has to be a majority. It has to be a 2-3 vote for that appeal to either be upheld or overturned.
And also, some cases you're dealing with private information of that individual, and all your commissioners are licensed, and we can't share that information with an unlicensed person. Even though they may be a judge, they may be an attorney, they're not licensed. And so we would be in violation of our confidentiality on that person that has the appeal point. And that was, I think, one of the reasons that we never considered going to court, because we're bound by confidentiality. The applicants that apply, we do a background check on them and have all that information. It should not be shared with anybody that doesn't have a gaming license and that has the need to know.
See, and I'm unfamiliar with how our tribal court handles its records. I mean, are they considered like state court? Are they public records?
They are considered to be public record. They're not as accessible, like with state court records, just go online and you can look at a lot of things, whereas, we don't have like an online portal for people to look at, but theoretically you should be able to go to the tribal court and request it to look at, records, and they'd be available to the public.
So that becomes an issue, it really does.
I got a question here. Reading the first part of tribal court, but the first sentence, A1, related to licensing and enforcement actions. That's strictly licensing. You're talking about tribal court getting involved in licensing disputes?
Yeah, like
Right.
someone that's upset that they were denied a license under this as written would be able to appeal through the tribal court.
Okay, and then the second part says, give proper deference to the commission's interpretation of its regulations. I don't see the big problem, but Oscar brought up a very valid point, that when the tribe had one attorney group representing both the CBC, the tribal government, and then for the gaming, many times the discussions we had on the tribal side, we would want to approach the gaming board and discuss issues, and then as soon as we walk in, the gaming board chairman would say, oh, well, we've mitigated that already, we've already discussed that there's no problem. So it became a problem with our need for information, and the gaming board sitting over there being forewarned about the questions or whatever we wanted, and it wasn't actually equitable service. So Oscar's point is very valid. And in fact, other bodies should not use, other bodies under the tribe cannot always use the tribal attorney for defending the tribe if it's within our government that something's coming out about the tribal government doing wrong.
I think that that's what makes tribal gaming so unique, is that with this ordinance that each tribe does, or puts, approves and submits, that gives us the authority to pick and choose, because not everybody can get a gaming license. Everybody can get a driver's license, but not everybody can get a gaming license. There are, again, like Mr. Codapone, we probably sound like repeat, but we are regulated under ICRA. It's very strict. Those regulations that NIGC put forward are very strict and they're straightforward. You cannot employ or grant a gaming license to certain individuals that have committed certain crimes. So with this ordinance, we have the authority to pick, and I don't want to say pick and choose, but you're protecting your most precious asset, and at this time, the nation's only asset, our moneymaker, which is gaming. So I agree strongly with Cheryl and Mr. Codapone, it needs to go back underneath the Gaming Commission, because the tribal judge, again, the confidentiality thing, that's a big issue. You know, when you go to a regular court, they're looking at all of the facts and all of everything that's presented there. And they're making a decision, an unbiased decision, whereas the commissions have to make decisions every day to enforce and regulate to protect our gaming, and that is very important.
I just want to add to her comment. If the Comanche Nation Tribal Court does not have jurisdiction over our gaming, then that language needs to be stricken from the ordinance.
Well, I think we're just talking about licensing particularly, correct?
Yeah.
That's
That's what I meant, in relation to just the licensing.
And as far as the jurisdiction goes, I mean, we can grant them whatever jurisdiction we want, but the question is, should we grant them that jurisdiction? And just taking temperature of the room, it sounds like the answer is no.
Would an administrative hearing carry the same weight as a judge's ruling? That if people agree by it, to have an administrative hearing and you walk away from it accepting the administrative decision, which then can be quantified or qualified as being an executive decision-making, not open to public discussion?
But whoever is hearing it still has to go through a background investigation, still has to get a license.
That's where you have more control as opposed to open court.
And see, this speaks to another issue that we brought up already, was the automatic transmission of minutes. Because all of those minutes, at least the period that I was involved with the commission, everything was, the court reporter showed up every meeting and kept a verbatim record of every meeting. And if you transmitted these hearings automatically, those very confidential personal information facts come up even during the discussion. And so we seal those, and those were only allowed to leave under certain circumstances or somebody to view. And so again, this is all stuff that for some reason seems like it's devolved and guarding the asset, as everybody said, which is gaming, but also guarding, in this case, licensing. There's a lot of tribal members that may or may not have applied and not got a license, and they don't want, I don't want their dirty laundry to be out there on why they didn't get one, if that's the case. You know, we want them to go be successful somewhere else, but we just couldn't give you a license. And I don't want everybody to know why we couldn't give you a license.
And you're bound by the disclosures that all of these individuals are signing when you go apply for a gaming license.
When you take even NIGC, the commission, gaming, National Indian Gaming Commission, if they disapprove somebody's management contract, or even, they can appeal, but they appeal to the commissioners. They don't go, they're not going to federal court or state court or whatever. They appeal to the commissioners, and the commissioners make that decision as to whether it should have been disapproved or not.
All right, we are running a little short on time, but I think we got through most of the exciting stuff. But we'll keep walking through here. Licensing is the next part. Part 400 talks about the authority to grant licenses and the need for licenses, the license application forms that will be promulgated by the commission, the fingerprints, background investigations. My understanding is most of this is kind of status quo. I don't think there's a lot of changes to this from between the existing ordinance and this proposal. But as has been mentioned a few times, there's a lot of iterations of gaming ordinances, and things from past versions might have been working better or worse than the current ordinance in effect. Gaming license eligibility determinations, reports to the NIGC, granting individual gaming licenses, granting licenses for gaming vendors, gaming facility licenses, these are like for the casinos themselves, license ineligibility, suspensions and revocations, hearings, again, it's in the tribal court, so that's something that we'll be discussing with the CBC, Gaming Commission, and other stakeholders, retention of license records, and then part 500 is ethics, and there's standards for the CEO and executive director, guiding principles, prohibited complementary items, gambling prohibited by the CEO, executive director, and certain employees, so you can't game at your own facility, consequences for ethical violations, and that is the proposed ordinance. So if you have anything on ethics or licensing or just general commentary.
Can you go to that last section?
Yep.
Because this did arise during my tenure. There was a Comanche Nation enterprise employee, just a floor employee, that went to another facility, and they were another tribe's facility, and they were accused of taking the ticket that comes out of the machine. The person played the machine, they walked off and left it, didn't return. That guy, woman, was sitting next to him, and they saw it, so they took it and they went and cashed it. Well, so again, you talk about we can't game at our facility, but I don't know if there needs to be. I'm not saying it should. I'm just citing an example and see that there should be something to say if an employee gets a violation or a ding at another facility, is that going to, is that cause to have them either license suspended, modified, or whatever the term would be? But again, that issue happened, and I know it caused a lot of tension between us and the chairman of that tribe's gaming commission. He happened to show up personally, and you might not have been aware of this, Cheryl, because he took me in the room and we bumped noses pretty hard about it, trying to figure out what to do about it. And my first inkling was to protect the Comanche Nation employee, Plus, I knew he was Comanche, and I tried to get the guy to show me, but again, you think of that example, and that is kind of that gray area that may or may not need to be addressed.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Any other comments on licensing or ethics?
One
Yeah,
comment
sure.
that, the document, I know it's inserting the boards and the commission, but there are several places within this document that is still making reference to, the commissioner and the CEO. So I think it needs to be another review of the document of this section board, that it be consistent in that it's the gaming board and the commissioners. There's also one suggestion, if you take the ordinance in 2015, that's where the board of, the gaming board and the commissioners were established, that I believe that it's very thorough and covers those two entities. So to me, this is a combination of the gaming board, the commissioners, and the current structure. And it's very confusing in a lot of parts, and it would probably pass and get approved, but the thing is that the people trying to implement it, it's very difficult because there's different words for different meanings. There's the commissioner referenced in here. There's the executive director mentioned in here. There's the CEO mentioned in here. So in some of those, it's one person, but it has a different title at a different time. So I think it needs to be reviewed.
So, I have
Yes, Ms. Williams.
I have a couple of, I actually have 3 areas that I think that we should consider. Nothing to make decisions on about today necessarily, but under ethics, are we requiring anyone within our gaming to undergo annual training of some kind that, upholds, the ethics that we're expecting of them, whether they are a commissioner or they're an employee? And if they're not, then I would encourage maybe our HR or someone within the gaming to develop a curriculum. Doesn't have to be very long, doesn't even have to, be 40 hours or anything like that, but I think exposing our employees as well as those that are serving, keyword they're serving, the nation, that they would undergo an annual training to affirm ethics. Another thing along with that would be having them sign some type of statement affirming ethics and the expectation as someone who is serving in that capacity. And to go even further, I would look at us considering that for the more senior positions, that we would ask for them to file a financial disclosure form, a report actually, that would prevent, and that's to prevent future conflicts of interest. Filing a financial disclosure report is typically done in more traditional senior executive level positions, whether you work in the government or in some, other capacities. So that would not be foreign to people, but that's a way for the nation to have some type of check on people and the access of information, as well as the access that they have to the whole gaming operations. And it protects the nation and it keeps people honest. What are y'all's thoughts?
That's currently in place. That's one of the things that were established in the beginning. We have tiers, if you will, that only allow certain departments and certain, where they're working at, they have limited access. There's only a few that have all access. But I do have one last comment. as far as licensing for key employees, PMOs, non-key. I have always felt that we should reevaluate those standards, those suitability criteria, if you will. But if we could readdress it or reevaluate in our gaming ordinance and consider maybe lowering some of those standards so we can employ more Comanche tribal members at all of our facilities. Because that's one of the biggest complaints I always hear is we don't have enough Comanche people working at our facilities. Well, it's because of those standards that we have in place according to our gaming ordinance, and I've always felt that if we lowered them just a little bit to allow these individuals to acquire a gaming license that would allow them to be employed by the Comanche Nation's casinos, I think that would be good.
Well, I would add to that, though, if we do undertake that type of approach, that we have some type of trust but verify process. I'm all for rehabbing individuals. I do believe people can change, and some people learn, and they want to do better. And I believe they should be given those opportunities. However, we have to be wise, and we don't want someone who robbed a bank to be in charge of our treasury. So we just want to be sure that we do it very judiciously, in my opinion.
And that's exactly what I'm speaking of. Unfortunately, if you rob a bank, you could never work in gaming. But if you committed a crime, everyone knows, in my experience that I learned working in gaming, I learned that majority of our natives that got caught on a reservation for any kind of crime was automatically a felony. And a lot of these individuals, they were teenagers in the 60s, 70s, and they have 30-year-old felonies for stuff that they wouldn't even get a felony today. It probably, I'm not sure, but those are the things I'm looking at. That stuff that you had a concealed weapon on your reservation back in the AIM era. You were going to jail. You were going to get a felony. Those things I don't think we should hold against our tribal members that try to come in and get a gaming license. Those are the things I want to be, have looked at, reevaluated, and maybe lower the standards. Not too much, but just enough to allow tribal members the chance to even get that gaming license.
Well, I think the commissioners have a process in place where individuals that were denied a gaming license could appeal to the commissioners, and more times than not, we granted a conditional license that they carried for a period of time, whether it was 6 months, a year, or whatever, that was accomplished with that. And there are some instances, such as our compact with the state of Oklahoma, which is written in there that if a person has completed a felony, we cannot license them. So with that, we would be jeopardizing our compact, which we could not do because that would have a tremendous impact upon casinos. But I think there's ways that if you have a commission, that the licensing department would probably disapprove the license, but they appeal it to the commissioners, and the commissioners have that ability to grant a conditional license. And then that way, the person after that period of time has expired, they'll have a permanent license. So that's the way an individual will be given a second chance to earn a living and to work. So, but that has been done on several occasions.
This is, I realize that this was mostly about the Comanche Nation casinos, but still, under these guidelines, it says that under the Class 1, it'd be on page 6, Class 1 and gaming and Class 2, I'm here to talk about the bingo. Could you explain to me, or anybody here, about what happened, why we cannot have, all the others said it is okay for me to talk about this, why we cannot have bingo games anymore, any longer in Comanche Nation buildings? Is that what they said? I believe that's what they told me.
So, my understanding is just that because bingo is defined as a Class 2 game without exception by federal law, the NIGC, when they heard about our bingo on our trust lands, became interested and kind of put their foot down a little bit. You know, I have been trying to work through that issue. I don't know that I've come up with any real solutions. There's been a lot of discussion on how to, you know, like, have a fundraiser that doesn't involve, that allows play of bingo without it technically being bingo. So like if you know, like, you could give free bingo and then have people just give donations instead of like charging them for bingo cards, and you could do that on trust lands. You could also have like other things where, you know, maybe you get a package where, you know, you can buy a hot dog and you get a bingo card, and then you buy a pop, you get another bingo card. So there's workarounds that we've been discussing. It's, you know, any sort of fee land, you can do bingo fundraisers there. So it's just, you know, like Watchataker Hall, Dorothy Laurentino, like those certain trust locations. And then, you know, I really think we need personally speaking for myself, like I think we need an actual bingo hall to play bingo.
Because really, when you get down to back here to page 31, bingo is not even considered, we're exempt from licensing and everything. I mean, we're like this just tiny thing on the whole gaming ordinance and everything. We are so tiny, we don't even require a licensing. We're exempt from that. And it's not, it couldn't be a Class 1 gaming, social games play.
That's the question that I asked. Like, if it's just low stakes enough, but doesn't it become Class 1 at some point? And what I was told was that no, that they will always call it Class 2.
It's gotta be a Class 2. Well, okay, that's my comment. That was, you know, if there's a solution, or say anybody comes up with a solution to get us a bingo building, our own bingo building, which we were promised years and years ago. Whenever they moved us out, they just kept adding machines, and then they said the bingo will have to go all together from out of the bingo hall. So, I mean, out of the casino. But yeah, they did promise us a building, and so that was my comment. We're still looking for a building. We would like a building, because everybody has some kind of a social, or, you know, they're raising money for a benefit. They're raising money for their children to get this or that. You know, it's not just going in there to gamble like you do at the casino. It's more of a social activity to us. I have one other comment to make. Does anybody read the Sunday paper about the AI emergency? Anybody? It was in the Sunday paper.
Yeah.
Did you read it, sir? AI is becoming a major emergency. And I really think that the biggest thing that we have, which is the Comanche casinos, that I think it needs to at least be put somewhere as a priority to look into what that entails. Because that is our whole, it's not really a whole livelihood for the Comanche Nation. I mean, it's like $25 a week, basically, when we get our per cap money. But it does take care of the rest of the things that we have in the Comanche Nation. So I would just like to put that comment in, that I think it's a concern that we need to get onto right now. Think about some way to protect our casinos from AI. AI is true. It's everywhere. It's on your phone, and now people are just using AI in order to just produce all kinds of things, and they are going for the big things. You know, they want. People can. I can't even believe. You know what a chip looks like, right? I mean, a chip is. They're going to put AI on the next iPhone generation iPhone that comes out. This AI will be on there in that phone, so everybody will have access to this. You know? So I just think it's an emergency. I think it's an issue that our executives need to think about, and I think that's a future thing. That it's not just me or my generation, but the next generation is going to be. We're teaching our kids now in schools still how to work with their hands, how to be an accountant, how to build buildings, how to do those things. But we're changing, the generation is now how our children use their brains, how they use their minds to complete things. And we're not teaching that in schools. We are really not truly doing enough for the next generation of our children. And I think that needs to be another priority for us, is to look at our young people and what the schools are teaching them. They teach them the basic things, but we need to be on top of more than that for them. So that's just my.
It's going to change the workplace.
I'm sorry?
It's going to change the workplace.
Yes, it definitely is. They have to know those things pretty soon.
A lot of them won't have the job that they think you can have.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so artificial intelligence and human-machine interface is called HMI. Robotics, autonomous systems, right? That's here. It's already here. Go into McDonald's on 82nd, and you're putting your order in on a machine. You're not even talking to the individual at the counter, right? Everyone, I would say younger people, they have cash out on their phones. So cyber, that type of digital currency. There's a lot of things that are evolving very fast, and AI is only going to expedite it. The only way that, in my opinion, that we can, start to interface with it, learn, is we need to create, maybe stand up some type of STEM, department, and they handle everyone from our little PK folks, because you can give a toddler an iPad of some type or a tablet, and they already know how to navigate on that very quickly.
My 5-year-old they have phones.
Yes, so they're very comfortable. Right, so they're very comfortable with technology. But science and technology is where our world is headed. And I believe that there's lots of opportunities for Comanche Nation to advance in those areas. We have some smart folks. We just need to look at where we're putting our investments and how we're growing the intellectual capital to meet those demands or those jobs that are going to be here. So,
or the lack of jobs.
Or the lack of jobs, because if you're, I would even dare say, if you're like an analyst, ChatGPT is probably going to put you out of a job soon. But that's just my personal opinion. The other thing I also wanted to say that we do need to look at how we address, and I'll say resolve, that bingo fundraiser. There's so many organizations that have been hurt by that, not just by the elder community, but even I'm a veteran, and a lot of the veteran organizations also use various types of fundraisers, and bingo was one of them. Nobody's winning $1,000 or even $100 walking out the door. People are donating the prizes to those events to raise funds for their organizations. And so if there's a way that we can quickly rectify that from this, whether it's writing to the IGC or whatever the entity is. Yes, Chairman. If it's them that are governing this, then we need to appeal to them. And I would be willing to help write a letter along with you, ma'am, to help appeal to them to do that. Because like you said, on page 31, it automatically says, these are the people that are exempt from this ordinance, but yet we still can't do those types of fundraisers unless they're in certain locations.
Right, that's how CIBA raised most of their money to go overseas to Germany to do.
I have a comment.
That's how they.
Actually, what you're talking about, these fundraisers, it's always been on the back burner about these bingos. It's just never been brought up. And you had other tribes that were getting caught, so they started actually coming down, and IGC started forcing this. So they finally caught up with everybody. It was always in place, it was always there. That's where it all started.
But right now, one thing we can't do is, if it's on fee land, it falls under the state law. And the state of Oklahoma has no objection to the bingo. So you can do bingo on fee land, in a building, not on trust.
Oh, I see.
You can do that.
The
That
rub,
doesn't fall under the gaming, see? Indian Gaming Regulatory Act doesn't fall under that.
So we just have to buy a piece of land, right?
Or have it, there's existing
With the
places.
Do it like at housing, that's one place you could go to housing, you could go to tax commission, you know, you have to ask, ask the directors over there, but if you could go to the tax commission or housing user conference room, you can have a bingo there.
Okay.
Right now, today, tomorrow, if you need, to do that.
the rub with bingo is that if you look at Class 2 gaming, which used to, now again, I quit tracking this in 2011. In 2011, the majority of our machines were Class 2 games. Class 2 games are electronic bingo. They've just revised them to look like a slot machine. And so if we get in violation with NIGC and they say, okay, you're not enforcing your bingo part of this, they're going to knock out 70% of our revenue. So that's why it becomes so imperative that we comply with everything NIGC says, because that was our big money maker for the tribe.
We're at the end of our scheduled time, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I know again that everyone, maybe you had to take off work or you had to rearrange your schedule, but it is an important topic, and I'm glad you came. So thank you for your time. And this is something that's new to me. I don't know if anyone else ever called a meeting like this before, but I hope to do it with other important issues. So thank you for coming.
One more comment, Cass, Casino, they're working. They're working out there.
Are they working out there?
I drive down over there
They
today.
never have one sign on the road. That building was over there and it was dark, you couldn't hardly see.
They're moving on it.
I don't know if I can pull it off, but